Be sure to subscribe today. With over 80% unsubscribed, it would certainly mean a lot. Emirates' calls for a new super jumbo to power their operations and eventually replace their Airbus A380-800s is something within our industry that can't go unnoticed. They're the largest operator of the series, and they are indeed really the lifeblood of the program. So much so that when they cancelled a portion of their remaining orders for the aircraft in 2019, it spelled the end for the plane, which would see a final unit delivered over 2 years later to Emirates to finally finish it off. With Emirates liking to keep their fleet young, and no aircraft genuinely capable of replicating what the A380 can do for them, Emirates has often been heard requesting an A380neo, but on every occasion it has been met with radio silence. Why? Well, to understand calls for the A380neo, there needs to be a brief outline of the A380's highly complex story that has partially meant that the program has been, according to many, a commercial failure, based on the expectations that were initially laid out during the development phase and what eventuated. Initially, Airbus was also moving ahead with two variants, the A380-800, as we know, being purely built for passenger purposes, and alongside that, there would have been an A380F. You guessed it, for freighter capabilities. Think of it as an enlarged 747F. The A380F even had as far as orders from UPS and FedEx, with other customers interested, including the Dubai-based Emirates. However, it would never proceed. Why? Well, due to complications with getting the A380-800's production underway and at a stable rate. As covered in the video, The Dramatic A380 Story, it highlighted the many issues that Airbus experienced in just getting their primary passenger variant away. All the focus really had to be put on this type, as it had the most orders, and thus the A380F faded into obscurity, and was cancelled in the end. It showcased Airbus's struggles at getting that -800 away, let alone other considerations at the time. While the initial idea for an A380-like aircraft was to be the answer to a 747, there was also a shift occurring in desires for aircraft by customers, a shift to more fuel-efficient, twin-engined aircraft. But the thing is, there are 1,900 bird strikes annually in Australia, and 13,000 plus in the United States. This rate is also something that is increasing, which is alarming. Avem Insight is a company with a tool professionals use to try and prevent those numbers from rising. Wildlife is really one of the biggest threats to this industry, and especially pilots. Avem Insight turns the problem into a more manageable solution, with data-driven technology to enhance safety through advanced warnings on threats and a more streamlined report process. What does all that mean? It means that Avem Insight and its app Confirm provide a single source of wildlife risk for all. Confirm highlights wildlife activity, stores profile data, and will very quickly send reports to the ATSB. It allows you to subscribe to locations for fast access and is quickly becoming a leading choice for professionals after a better means to prevent wildlife impacting operations. You can learn more about what Avem Insight is doing in the description and pinned comment. Be sure to check them out. But see, I was just discussing the comparison between the A380 and the 747, and while Airbus faced problems getting their first A380 iteration actually away, that is a different time. So what would an A380neo entail? Well, the reality is that Airbus has never actually proceeded with discussions around such a variant. The closest thing to a neo was the A380 Plus, revealed many years ago, which was Airbus's means to squeezing more life out of the program that was at that point really struggling considerably. The A380 Plus, as expected, attracted very little interest, and that study was shelved in favour of more beneficial future jets. So, the specifications therefore around an A380neo come from only one customer expressing interest through their own studies. As the name suggests, an A380neo would be a re-engine of the -800. Think of it as a pretty similar gap between the A330 and the A330neo, or very generally any re-engine that takes place. Tim Clark, the boss at Emirates, said that the proposed Neo would see an engine change that could increase fuel efficiency up to 25%. This is also worth noting, it is substantially higher than Airbus's quoted target with the A380 Plus alternative in the 2010s. Such a fuel efficiency improvement would only be possible thanks to upcoming advanced engine designs that manufacturers are working on. The Rolls-Royce Ultrafan is the engine that Tim Clark has specifically quoted as what could be an impressive addition to the already building blocks that the A380 series laid out. While the Ultrafan was the engine that was mentioned, the discussion around such an A380neo has been a long-standing thing for Tim Clark, who noted during the Paris Air Forum that pondering how to make an A380 more attractive is something they're very keen on, with no doubt a vision of if Airbus were to hypothetically proceed, utilize it within their fleet for many decades to come. However, the main problem is Tim Clark and Emirates remain one of the few airlines that could actually make the A380 work to begin with, and at the sheer scale they did, flying at peak over 100 units, it was pretty incredible, but it is something that's not been replicated around the world. An airline typically needs a primary hub and operates the hub and spoke model from there, really focusing on port-to-port flights, rather than operating into secondary cities and more. And in the past few decades, there's been a significant shift away from this. It is why no US carrier ordered the series, because they focus on a multi-hub model. Therefore, as other companies also move ahead with the A350, 777X and 787 as replacements for their own A380s, the only genuine company interested in the premise of an A380neo remains Emirates. But see, Airbus won't budge. They have no intention at the moment of building such a plane. Why? Well, it's pretty simple when you think about it. Despite heavy interest from their number one customer for the initial type, Airbus have bigger things that do need sorting, and focus is shifting elsewhere. It isn't on an aircraft body such as the A380 anymore, and immediately you could think about the A350F, an aircraft that is going to be essential at trying to close in the gap between Airbus and Boeing for cargo solutions for companies. And then you have the A321XLR, which is slotting into that middle of the market area to compete with the non-existent Boeing NMA. They can't certify that plane, it has already been delayed. But see, those are two immediate focuses, and there's so much more, like what they'll do in the 2030s. In terms of production for the A380, when considering it, the line has shut, and other critical aircraft have moved into that space. The direction of the industry has changed, and while such an airline like Emirates can propose the aircraft all they want, it ultimately needs a lot more than just them to drive a decision that is in their favour. Other customers would have to rally with Emirates, and ultimately, even then, it may not be enough to push Airbus over the line. It makes sense though. We'd all love to see the A380 in some capacity keep flying for say 30 plus years if the Queen of the Skies, the 747, is disappearing. And sure, because who can say no to more quad engines, but as stated many times, the direction that these companies are headed is constantly changing, but moving in a way where planes like the A380 are not something a manufacturer wants to invest time and energy into. Airbus has bigger priorities, and it's going to likely remain that for the foreseeable future. What are your thoughts? Do you believe Airbus should at least start listening to the conversation being put forward by Emirates for a new high-capacity plane? Or do you believe the largest aircraft we'll get from Airbus is the A350-1000, which they may continue to develop, like we're seeing for the ULR variant that is headed for Qantas? Let me know down below in the comments. Thanks a lot for your support. Take care and be safe. Make sure to check out today's sponsor, which is AVM Insight, in the description and also the pinned comment to check out all the work they're doing at trying to make aviation a safer space for all.